Hey, welcome to Crosspoint. My name's Vince, and we're so excited to see you today as we continue the teaching series, Spark, Ideas That Ignite. These are new ideas that can create powerful change in our lives, and this summer we'll continue to explore the ideas that can move the needle on things that matter in our lives and our world. And so today we're going to look at how to spark a better story. So if you're tired of the same old story, you're looking to spark a new narrative, maybe even add some fresh hope, you're in the right place today. So we're so glad that you're here. But first, I want to give a special welcome to everyone who's joining us for the first time. We want you to know that Crosspoint is a church you can be a part of no matter where you live or what you believe about God. And we'd love to get to know and help you get connected and involved in the right ways around here. And to do that, if you want to take out your device and scan this QR code, you can let us know who you are and a little bit about yourself. And if this is your first time with us, we'll send you a gift in the mail this week, just as a way of saying thank you for joining us. While you're doing that, we have lots and lots of ways to connect over the next few weeks around here. But first, one of the best things that happens around here all year is just 1 week away. Check it out. Hey, how cool was that? Next weekend, we're kicking off At the Movies 13. We're going to be taking a look at all the spiritual meaning behind some of the biggest movies of the year on the big screen. And we're starting it all off with the summer box office hit, Superman. But I have to tell you, one of the best parts about this series is the free movie tickets. That's right, you heard me. All the first-time guests and those who bring them are taking home free movie tickets. So invite a friend, a neighbor, a co-worker to join any of our in-person or online services, and they get free movie tickets, and you do too. Now, in addition to kicking off At the Movies, we're also hosting an At the Movies after party next Thursday, which is a great opportunity to invite a friend to join for service and stay for the after party, where we'll have movie snacks and both adult beverages plus a variety of non-alcoholic beverages in the commons. So we hope to see you then. And next Sunday, August 3rd, we want to invite you to join us here at the Crosspoint campus for the back-to-school kickoff party in the parking lot after both the 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. services. We'll have inflatables, games, treats, plus Kona Ice for everyone. It's going to be a blast. Hey, young adults, Monday, August 4th, we're hosting a young adult worship night from 7 to 8:30 right here in the venue at the Crosspoint campus. So whether you're heading off to college, starting a new job, or just trying to figure out this whole adulting thing, we hope you'll join us for a night designed to help you get ready for whatever's next. Plus, for all rising 7th through 12th grade students, CSM, our Crosspoint Student Ministries, is kicking off the school year with an amazing event called The Chase. You're not going to want to miss this. Students will be divided into 2 teams for multi-week team building experiences filled with fun challenges and opportunities to make new friends and encouragement to help you start the year strong. Each week is designed to be an easy entry point for new students, including incoming 7th graders, and it all begins Sunday, August 10th. And last, Carpool Cinema is back Friday, August 15th for a great movie, drive-in movie style with the Disney hit sequel Mufasa, The Lion King. Not only is it free, but it's also a good opportunity to invite someone to join you. You can bring family, the neighbors, even the dog. Hey, come early, get your tailgate on. You can bike, skate, drive, even walk over here, and let's make a night of it. The parking lot opens up at 7:30 and the movie starts at dusk. All right, we've got a great service for you today, as we're going to have the opportunity to hear from Curt in just a moment and what he has to say about writing a better story. But first, to get us headed in that direction, here's the Crosspoint Band with Louis Capaldi's new release, Survive.
How long till it feels like the wounds finally started to heal? How long till it feels like I'm more than a spoken will? Most nights I feel that I'm not enough. I've had my share of Monday mornings when I can't get up. when hope is lost, but I come undone. I swear to God I'll survive if it kills me too. I'm gonna get up and try if it's the last thing I do. I've still got something to give, though it hurts sometimes. I'm gonna get up and live until the day that I die. I swear to God I'll survive. I long to know that in truth you know nothing at all. How far will you go to get back to the place you belong? Most nights I feel that I'm not enough, but I refuse to spend my last years rotting in the sun. When hope is lost and I come undone, I swear to God I'll survive if it kills me too. I'm gonna get up and try if it's the last thing I do. I've still got something to give, though it hurts sometimes. I'm gonna get up and live until the day that I die. I swear to God I'll survive. I swear to God I'll survive. I swear to God I'll survive if it kills me too. I'm gonna get up and try if it's the last thing I do. I still got something to give, though it hurts sometimes. I'm gonna get up and live until the day that I die. I swear to God I'll survive.
Hey, Crosspoint, how we doing this weekend? Man, I tell you what, it's so good to see you guys. And if you are here for the first time with us, my name's Curt, and we've got a whole bunch of people in the room. It's good to see you online. Let's make some noise for those in our online space this weekend. So good to have you join us this weekend. And if you're here for the first time, we just want to welcome you, and we are excited. In fact, you're winning. I think God's got some cool things in store for you this weekend, and really excited about what we're going to be talking about. And we've been in this series called Spark, Ideas That Ignite. And tonight we're going to talk about what it means to ignite a better story. Because for some of us, we're kind of tired of the same old, and we just want to get to some new places. So we're going to talk about that. And have you guys enjoyed this series? Make some noise if you've enjoyed this over the last few weeks. I'll tell you what, I've been away for the last 4 weeks, which I'll talk about in a moment, but I've been tuning in with you, part of the online crowd, and just absolutely loved Clay Scroggins a few weeks ago. If you missed him on our online-only weekend over the holiday weekend in July, he was amazing, and he talked about what it means to be the bottom of the ninth kind of people that show up in the lives of people. people. And we want to be those kinds of people. You are those kinds of people. In fact, just this week, this is kind of cool. The Back to School in Style initiative, many of you have been giving to, clothing, shoes, that all got delivered to families this week. How about that? Way to go, Crosspoint. You are showing up in people's lives through our partnership with elementary schools by serving our community in the bottom of the ninth moments. Audrey Weger, we had a chance to hear from her, the CEO of Grace Horizon, just doing amazing redeeming work and restoring work with women that are in human trafficking and other industries that just take away dignity. And so cool to hear from her. And then how about Eric Bushton-Kirk? You guys enjoy Eric? Not just once, but twice over the last few weeks. I am so appreciative to him because he led our team during that time and here at Crosspoint as well, and just his teaching was amazing. So it's good to be back with you. If you're newer over the last few weeks, I take an annual rest and study break every summer, and so appreciative to just have some time to unplug and disconnect. And I'm going to share some of the things I've discovered and that God's just been doing in me that I think perhaps might spark some growth in you. One of the things, though, I discovered to get us going over the last few weeks is that I get mistaken often for other people. In fact, other famous people. And we were traveling quite a bit, and my wife and I were walking together through this really, really crowded outdoor area about a week and a half ago. And as we were walking through the crowd, this guy is yelling. He's saying, "Hey, George Clooney's brother." Hey, George Clooney's brother. And we just kept on going. My wife, she stopped. She's like, he's talking to you. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I do see the resemblance right there. Actually, I think what it was is when I get my hair cut, my gray just sprouts out a lot more. And he's pretty gray. So I think maybe that was the connection there. My wife... a few years ago, I was traveling with her and our kids, and we were at a Disney resort, and a couple of our girls and my wife were shopping. I was sitting with my son and maybe one of my daughters out in this kind of commons area. And as we were sitting there, these young kids, we didn't know them. They just came up and started hanging out, really close, came close and just kind of I'm sitting there, and they kind of came and sat right next to me. If you've seen the movie The Santa Claus, you know how when Tim Allen, he's not sure he's the Santa Claus yet, but all the kids know it, and they're trying to get close to tell them their list. These kids are basically sitting on my lap, and I'm getting a little weirded out. I'm I don't know where the parents are, what they're going to be thinking. And so, before long, the dad walks up and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" He's like, "My kids, they are over here hanging with him. I've noticed that." And he said, "Are you one of those guys on the Disney Channel or something?" And of course, I'm wow. I was thinking he was probably thinking I was Zac Efron or Ross Lynch. My kids are like, "No, Dad, I think they think you're Bob from Good Luck Charlie." I think that's the guy they're talking about, so that one took me down a few notches. I'll tell you one more. Again, my wife, she works in the schools here locally. She's a coach with teachers. And a few years ago, the custodian that was cleaning her office at the end of the day came over to her, and he said to her, "Hey, Julie, I'm really mad at you." And she was kind of "Oh my gosh, what did I do? Did I mess something up? Am I not, leaving my room in a good shape?" And he said, "Oh, no. He said, "You never told me that you're married to somebody famous." And my wife was like, "You mean he's a pastor? Is that what you mean?" And he's like, "No." And he walked her over to her desk, and he's like, "This photo of you right here on your desk, you never told me you were married to the guy that hosts Survivor." And I'm like, if I look like that when I'm his age, I'm in on that. Now, my wife took the photo that was on her desk to her principals later that day for a meeting to tell them the story, and whom I know very well. I know both of them very well. In fact, one of them, you attend here. You've been a partner with us for years, and said, "Hey, do you see the resemblance?" They're like, "Yeah, we don't see the resemblance at all." And so anyway, you want to hear one more? All right, so here's the last one. This last week, we were, my wife and I went to a show, and after the show, we were in a big, opera house, and after the show, it was very busy, and we had to hit the restroom, so, we went and used them, and the women's obviously was way longer than the men's, as it always is, and so I was in and out pretty quick. And so I'm standing, out there with all the dudes, just waiting with our hands in our pockets, for our wives, girlfriends come out. And this guy next to me, a young kind of hip guy, he goes, "Hey, you want a piece of gum?" And I didn't know we were doing that, but he offered me a piece of gum, and I just put a mint in my mouth, so I declined. I said, "No, thank you." And then he's like, "Hey, did you enjoy the show?" And I'm like, "Oh, that was a segue. You want to connect." And so I'm like, yeah, the show was amazing. And, I'm like, how about you? And he's like, I've never been to something like this. We had no idea what we were, coming to. And he's like, we live in New Jersey and we've never gone out of New Jersey. And I'm like, my God, you need to see the rest of the world. Anyway, we did some small talk, and then his girlfriend came out and her friend, and they were like, oh, you met a friend. And so we all got acquainted. And then they, asked if I was with my girlfriend or my wife, and I'm like, my wife. And they're like, where are you from? And I said, Indianapolis. And they're like, well, what do you do there? And I said, well, we've had the Pacers, they're pretty big. And they're like, Caitlin Clark. I'm like, yeah, Caitlin Clark. And so a little small talk, and eventually he's just like, all right, well, you just don't get caught being like that CEO, at the U2 concert. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, that was a weird ending to that conversation. So my wife comes out right after that, and I was telling her, and she's like, Curt, he thought you were the CEO at the U2 concert. And I promise you I was not. But here's a picture of us at the show. I was in a similar shirt. And so all that to say, I discovered I get mistaken at times. And it's not always a good thing. But I promise you, that's not me right there. It's good to be back with you. I do believe we have a lot of similarities. I think especially when it comes to our stories. And that's something I want to talk about this weekend. There's moments that come, seasons of life we go through, events we go through, and they really have the potential to define us. And I'm very appreciative for this time off every year, these 4 weeks to just disconnect. And it's not always up and to the right for me. There's parts of it, especially the first week, and this was true this year, it's always a bit difficult because for me to kind of disconnect for 4 weeks from the things I pour my life into and being a part of things and not knowing how things are going, I get in a very vulnerable state. And mental health, becomes a challenge at times, and I question my identity, and I find myself having anxieties and doubts, and it's just a normal process. And I'm not the best, human being to be around for about a week. And then I get very introverted and don't want to be around anybody. And then I kind of emerge out of that. And then it's really a good soul-giving time. And that's really what it's been. And during each of my morning times, I would spend different times reading about different stories in my devotional time. And I read a story about Gideon one morning. I thought, man, I really related to this. And I thought you might connect with it as well. It came from the book of Judges. And I related to this story partly because he'd gone through a number of difficult things, some challenging things in the season he'd been in. And I'd gone through some of those just like many of you probably have. And this was causing him to question God's presence with him. And Gideon himself, he was invited by God basically to help save the Israelite nation. To help save God's people back, thousands of years ago. And yet he felt, very incompetent, and he was one of the smallest tribes. He's like, who am I? Who's God to use me? And so he even questioned, how he could be used when he just seemed to be outsized by so many other leaders and tribes. And so God reminded him in the midst of that story that, hey, Gideon, I called you for my purposes. And there was just something in that moment that just kind of settled with me because sometimes we look at all the factors and the metrics and all the things going on around us and we're like, oh man, we look at things that God's not necessarily looking at. And God in that moment was kind of empowering him forward. And Gideon, he just paused and he thanked God in that moment. And that thanking God, was just kind of a part of his story of experiencing more and more of God's, purpose and power in his life. And so it just caused me to wonder. I feel that way sometimes. And it caused me to wonder how many of us at times we feel a bit outsized by some of the challenges and the things that are going on around us and in our lives. And it even causes us to interpret certain things and go, okay, God, are you really with me in the midst of this? And so I want to talk a bit about that this weekend. And when we find ourselves in those kind of outsized moments, how do we write a better story out of those moments? How do we in the midst of those moments when things don't go our way or perhaps we fail or things, we're dealing with something we never would have imagined, how do we allow those things to make our story instead of define our story? And let me just say that if you're in the room or tuning in online this weekend and you're not a Christian, or you're not sure you're a Christian, you're unsure of some things, maybe somebody invited you today to join us, or you're just looking for a church right now, or maybe you checked out of faith a number of years ago and you're circling around to see if you can maybe re-engage. First of all, let me just say we're glad you're here. We're glad you're tuning in with us. But the cool thing is all of this we talk about today is completely optional. All right, in fact, all of it's always completely optional, but specifically the stuff we'll talk about, you can choose if you want to do it or not. But I will tell you, if you will do and lean into some of this stuff, I guarantee you are probably going to experience more and more of God's presence in your life. However, if you are a Christian, if you're somebody who calls yourself a Jesus follower, then this is kind of core for us today. All right, meaning as we think about what Jesus has done for us, what we believe about who Jesus is, I mean, my prayer is that might be a part of the thing that helps us, again, write a better story. You know, regardless of what challenges you may be going through or what season you may find yourself in, that God has actually done something amazing for us. In fact, in one of our darkest moments in life, when we needed a Savior, guess what? God sent his Son, before we even got to that moment, his Son Jesus, to actually do that, to fill in that gap for us, to do something on our behalf that we couldn't do for ourselves. And his mercy is unending. His love just like continues to pursue us. And when we begin to just like really realize the realities of that, it changes everything. And it's just that sometimes we need reminders of that. In fact, I want us to take a look at something that King David wrote in the book of Psalms. He said this, he said, go ahead, give God thanks for all the glorious things he has done. Go ahead, worship him. Tell everyone about his wonders. Now, to be honest, there are a lot of verses or instructions in the Bible that sometimes you look at them and you're like, man, this is really hard to live out right here. And sometimes you can even feel like, you know, some of these are like reserved for like super Christians, like those that are really steeped in the faith. The thing I love about this verse right here, it doesn't matter how spiritual you are. It doesn't matter how much you know about the Bible or don't know about the Bible. It doesn't matter how perfect your life or how imperfect your life is. Anyone can give thanks to God for what Jesus has done for us. And if your life's going good right now, if things are going well, you're like, yeah, that's a no-brainer, man. Look at God go. You're like, woo, man, life is good. God is good. I mean, it's easy to do that. But I want to speak for a moment to those of us who perhaps are struggling a bit. Maybe you are dealing with some, you know, an unexpected diagnosis. Or perhaps, you know, you're looking for employment again. Or there's something that just kind of popped up and, you know, with your kids. Or, you know, something that just kind of blew up, you know, in a relationship or in a marriage. Or perhaps, you know, I don't know, something in the news cycles just really has you like feeling weighty. Or maybe just loneliness. I mean, that's a big one in and of itself. And so again, for those of us that are struggling today, when you do what David says, when you give thanks to God for what he has done, especially when you're in the midst of the chaos, all right, that's not gratitude right there. You know what that is? That's a declaration right there. It's like putting a deposit on a better future when you do that. What you're saying is, hey, I remember how God came through the last time. Even though I'm not in that season, I'm not seeing how it's all going to come together right here. Guess what? When I thank God in the tough times and people around you who know your story and they look at you and they go, oh my gosh, you're thanking God in the midst of this thing going on in your life right now? I mean, number one, they're going to think you're crazy. All right, but they're like, you're thanking God in the midst of the chaos right now? And you get to go, yeah, you know why? Because I've seen him faithful before, and there's no reason for me to believe that his character is going to be any different. See, thanking God in the middle of your struggle reminds your soul that your story's not over. And I don't know about you, but there's times where I need to be reminded that my story's not over. I mean, there's certain seasons we go through where we think, man, these are going to be so defining. No, the story's not over. In fact, it's kind of a little way of like giving yourself a little mini pep talk. Just reminding yourself, hey, the goodness of God, even if I'm not fully seeing it, it's there. That's why David says, go ahead, give God thanks for all the glorious things he's done. Go ahead and worship him. Tell everyone about his wonders. Brant Hansen is a guy who wrote a book. In fact, Eric last weekend actually referenced this book. And if you haven't picked this book up, I want to encourage you to consider grabbing one of these books. Eric, referenced a few things last weekend out of this. He told me he was going to be, kind of referencing this book. I picked it up. I'm like, I like that title. Life is hard. God is good. Let's dance. And I was intrigued by it. And I'm telling you, this was one of the most soul-giving things to me over the last 4 weeks. In fact, if you want to pick it up at Amazon, you can scan the QR code for those of you tuning on the line. We've got these out at Connection Point. If you want to take a look at it, they're like $10, I think. And if you can't afford it, just take it with you. But it's a fantastic book. In fact, I had a meeting with a friend this week, and we were just kind of catching up. And he's really somebody I highly respect, and really is kind of a mentor of mine, a mentor relationship. And at the end of our time, he said to me, he said, Curt, would you pray for me? He said, I'm just really, really struggling right now. He said, I'm really struggling with just seeing so many people in pain and so many people around me, experiencing, just unnecessary things with all the things going on in our world and our country. And he's like, I'm just really burdened with all the suffering going on around me. And I said, hey, can I give you a book? And he said, but absolutely. And so I dropped this book off at his office for him. And so, I just encourage you, if you're needing a little change of narrative, I really encourage you to consider picking this book up. Now, one of the things that Brant, says or asks in this book is this question. He said, what if you could know that even in the worst case scenarios, even if those worst case scenarios happen, you could be okay? Let me say that again. What if you could know that even if the worst case scenarios happen, you could be okay? Because see, what I've been discovering is, I've experienced some worst case scenarios. You've experienced some worst case scenarios. And what I've been discovering is if I can really trust God in those moments, man, that changes everything. But see, here's the problem. And this is my problem, but Brant, talks about this in his book as well. I believe there's a God that I can trust, but I don't always trust that God as much as I trust me. Now, just out of curiosity, just raise your hand. I've got my hand up first. If you struggle with that a bit, you're like, yeah, I believe in God, but I tend to trust me a little bit more. Yeah, there's about half of you that are honest, and the rest of you are lying in here today. And I hope you're playing along at home. Now, many of us would say, yeah, that's me. That's me, right? And again, the problem, it's that we imagine the worst case scenarios. We're really, really good at this. I can come up with a whole bunch of them. We can just rattle them off real quick. We get stressed, we get anxious about things that haven't even happened and things that probably won't even happen, all right? But what if in the worst case scenarios, you could actually be okay? See, I think this is something Jesus tries to show us and demonstrate for us over and over and over again. In fact, many of the stories we've looked at from Jesus over these last few weeks, it's these moments where Jesus is trying to grow us in trust. I want to tell you another story right here. Maybe you remember the Jesus calms the storm story. All right, I want you to really think about the logistics of this story for a moment. All right, Jesus, he gets in a boat with his disciples. All right, they begin to go across this big lake. All right, they get hit by a storm. Everybody in the boat begins to freak out, right? Everybody panics except one guy, right? There's one guy not panicking. Who is it? Jesus, right? And you're like, well, we're in church. It's always Jesus. Well, not always is that the right answer, but in this case, it is the right answer. Jesus is the only one not panicking. You know what Jesus is doing? He's actually laying down under a bench with his head on a cushion. All right, just think about that for a moment. All right, and they go wake him up because they're all freaking out. They're panicking, and he says something to every single person on that boat. He looks at them and he says this. He asks them a question. Why are you so afraid? And then he calms the storm. Now, two things kind of stand out to me about this story. This is fascinating. Number one, this whole trip, this whole ordeal was Jesus' idea. He's the one that said, hey, let's follow me. Let's do a follow the leader across the lake in this boat. I want to teach you that even the worst case scenarios come up, you don't have to worry. But the second thing that kind of stands out here is Jesus, he was sleeping on a cushion. Now this is fascinating because the writer Mark right here, he's not really known for giving a lot of details. He probably gives the least amount of detail of all the writers in the New Testament, even the whole Bible for that matter. But Mark here, he's usually given the big picture and he's all action. And he's mentioning a cushion. He's like, Jesus is on a cushion. Now, if you just do a precursory search of the New Testament, let me tell you how many times you'll find the word cushion in there. One time. All right? I checked this out. One time. It's the only time that detail of there was a cushion is mentioned. And you might go, okay, well, what's the takeaway on that? I'm not fully sure. I just thought that was fascinating. There doesn't always have to be a takeaway. But here's the thing. Maybe Jesus wanted to travel with a cushion. I had a grandmother that did that. She took her pillow everywhere she went. I'd never understood it. She'd come to our house when we were young. I'm like, Mom, why should she bring her pillow? We have dozens of pillows around her house. She'd bring her little pillow with her everywhere she goes. And so, I don't know, maybe he wanted to take the pillow with him. But see, I think there was something bigger going on right here. I think he was saying, hey, if you will trust me, if we will trust him fully, it allows us to live our lives in a wonderfully free way. I think that's what he's actually trying to demonstrate. And even if the ship goes down, see, they thought the ship was going down, that we're going to be safe. You know why? Because we're with him. We're safe. Even death doesn't have the final say. It doesn't have the final word. You know what the final word is? It's joy. Jesus assures over and over, hey, even the things of this world, there's going to be a joy beyond the things you experience on this earth. There's a writer by the name of Thornton Wilder. He is a playwright, novelist. You may know the play Our Town. He wrote Our Town. And he wrote this just fascinating little short play about two men who were among the sick, the blind, and the malformed. And I want to read you a little excerpt from it. It's a very kind of lesser known play. And in this story, every now and then, this pool would be stirred by an angel, all right? And it was believed that people could be healed. And so one of the guys in this story was a desperate man who he just keeps showing up at the pool. He just keeps showing up because he wants to be healed. He's got all kinds of things going on in his life. And then the other guy that shows up at this pool in this play is a newcomer. He's actually a doctor. He's the kind of guy that's faithful through his whole life to like help bring healing and health and wholeness to other people, physically. But he was dealing with some stuff, and he wanted this long, standing condition he was dealing with to perhaps be healed. And so they're both standing there, and when the angel, appears next at this pool, the angel offered healing only to the first man. And when the doctor saw this, even though he's a newcomer, he kind of objected to this. He said, whoa, wait a second. He's like, just think what might happen. I mean, I'm somebody who's been bringing life and healing to other people. Just think what I might be able to do in love service, if you could free me of this bondage, this thing that I'm dealing with. And that's when the angel says this right now. I want to read to you from this playwright. He says, without your wound, this is what the angel says to the man, to the doctor, without your wound, where would be your power? Is it your very remorse? It's your very remorse that makes your low voice tremble into the hearts of men. The very angels themselves cannot persuade the wretched and the blundering children on earth, as can one human being broken on the wheels of living. In love service, only the wounded can serve. He says, when things don't always go the way that you hope, it's actually in the midst of that, that's actually what sometimes prepares you and equips you to be served and be used. Now, not all of us are going to fully grasp and understand what that means, but I think it begins to give us a better understanding of something that Paul said in Romans, which is kind of a tension-filled verse where Paul says, hey, we know that in all things, and we go, okay, Paul, well, what kind of things are those? And Paul says, all things. I mean, everything. And you're like, okay, but good things, bad things, things that are expected, not expected. Paul says, hey, we know in all things God works. To which, again, there's some tension in this. We go, okay, wait a second, Paul. In all things? I mean, I just don't understand how something that doesn't seem good or what's desired or desirable, how in the world can you use those things? And Paul says, we just know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him. Now, this verse is easy to kind of understand when we see good things happening in our lives, but oftentimes those things take time. And the good things don't always have to outweigh the bad. What Paul's saying is God is at work. God is at work redeeming things. God is at work untwisting things. God is at work unscrambling things. God is at work putting your story and my story to work. And he puts our wounds to work. That's what he does. It's his MO. It's how his kingdom works. Anything that we submit to him is useful to him. When I first began ministry back, 33 years ago, and I'm not talking even in a church. I mean, this was like when I was still in college and I was doing some ministries on the campus where I attended. I remember when I first had a call to be a pastor, I remember just thinking, oh gosh, man, I got to get my life together. I mean, I'd been growing as a Christian, but I'm like, I gotta kind of be this, picture perfect specimen of a human being. I mean, if I'm going to be a pastor, man, I got to set a model for I'm going to be held to a higher standard, and I just got to, I got to get it together. And I quickly discovered three things right away. Number one, I realized that's impossible. All right, it's impossible to have your life all together. Some of you might still be wrestling with that, but let me just assure you, that's not possible. Number two, I realized, man, you will drive yourself crazy trying to achieve something that's unattainable, that's impossible. And then the third thing I began to realize is nobody's looking for a pastor who thinks they have it all together. I just realized that right away. All right, people actually want to see actual human beings. Right? And, early on in my ministry, I was trying to be the cool pastor. I'm like, I want to be the cool pastor that makes God cool and have that cool voice and that cool persona. And, that works for about 5 seconds and then it doesn't matter anymore. As opposed to being the pastor who has a terrible voice or, not a cool persona. And let me tell you, that matters as well, but that only matters for about 5 seconds because people want real, unsmooth humans. Right? We want real. In fact, when we were starting Crosspoint back in 2006 and laying some of the groundwork for this, a friend of mine who was kind of a mentor, he's a church startup pastor, he said to me, he said, Curt, as long as you speak out of your brokenness, you will never run out of things to say. I'm like, wow. I'm like, I don't know how to take that. At first, I was a little offended. I'm like, are you saying I got a lot of brokenness in my life, a lot of rough edges that I need to, and really that's what he was saying. But I always had this fear, like, what if I don't have anything to say when I get up on a stage? He said, hey, as long as you speak out of the places in your life that God's still working out, you will never run out of stuff to say. And that conversation really informed who we are here at Crosspoint. I mean, it's one of the reasons we say all the time, hey, we're a place where it's okay not to have it all together. And I'm the chief officer of that, by the way. Chief officer of not having it all together. But see, that's what happens when you give up on trying to be impressive. You actually can just be real. And at times it's awkward. And I don't like awkward. I don't know if you like awkward. Most of us don't like awkward. But it's actually in the awkward that we actually get to the new places and we begin living the better story. In fact, I want to give you kind of 3 tips, if you will, from Brant's book, Life's Hard, God's Good, Let's Dance. We give you 3 tips on embracing the awkward because I think these things actually help us get to writing a better story. All right, so he gives us 3 things. So here's what they are. Number 1, he says, say yes to stuff knowing very well that you might look dumb. All right, now, I should have learned this a long time ago. When my daughters come and ask me a certain question, the answer should always be no. And yeah, I keep saying yes. And it makes me look so dumb. And they don't even tell me what I'm doing. They just say, hey, Dad, would you like to make a TikTok video with us? And I should just immediately say, absolutely not, and turn around and walk away. But for some reason, I'm like, well, what do you want to do? They just give me a little snippet, and then and I do some stupid part, and it makes its way into these bigger things. In fact, you guys want to see one? All right, here's one of them right here. Take a look at this.
Going down the bayou, going down the bayou, going down the bayou, taking you all the way. We got the whole family. There go Mimi, cousin Boudreaux, oh grandmama, your light out. We all gonna pull together.
I mean, what adult man says yes to that in a public place? You know what? I guess I was just leaning into the awkwardness of saying yes to stuff, knowing very well you might be dumb. It actually helps you get to new places. You know why it does that? Because so many times we take ourselves too seriously. And at the end of the day, you know what that does? Being goofy actually frees us to take the lighter side of life. The second thing he says is this. He says, use the word experiment a lot. All right, one of the ways we get to trying things or maybe getting past things that are holding us up or where we're being stuck, hey, experiment with something. Maybe you're trying something new. Maybe you want to start a book club in your neighborhood. You don't know if anybody wants to come to it. All right, and just say you're going to experiment with it. Say, hey, I'm going to experiment doing a book club. I'm going to see if anybody wants to be a part of this or not. And just invite your friends. If it doesn't work, you can just be like, well, we tried it. It was an experiment. So just experiment a lot. And then the third thing that he says is when you fail, don't just own it, but lean into it. Lean into it. Now, I don't know if you saw this on the social medias recently, but throwing out a pitch at Wrigley Field is like a really, really big deal. And a couple weeks ago, we learned something about Alvin Kamara. I don't know if you saw this or not, but he's a running back for, I think, New Orleans Saints, still for the Saints. One thing we know is he's a really good running back. What we learned is he sucks when he throws. I mean, he's horrible. And if you didn't see this, he tried to throw out the first pitch at Wrigley Field, and it was horrific. Take a look at this right here. I mean, he did something amazing. He did something you hardly ever see somebody do when they blow it like that. You know what he did? He asked for a redo. He totally leaned in. He had no assurance second time was going to go better, and it was still pretty rough, right? I mean, that was like 3-4 feet outside the strike zone still right there. But he asked for a redo. I mean, he illustrated this right here. Even if you spectacularly fail in front of thousands of people, don't just own it. Lean into it. Lean into it. See, I think this right here is where a lot of us break down, myself included. When we feel like we failed, when we feel like something didn't go the way that we want, when we feel like, man, that was not at all the result that I was going for right there. Maybe we even experienced something we've actively contributed to. Man, I contributed to this. I made my bed right here. I'm just gonna have to sleep. But we kind of own it, but we don't lean into it. I want to show you a scene from a movie clip here in a moment that I think God might use to kind of communicate something to you on this. In fact, this is, by the way, why we do At the Movies. Who's excited about At the Movies 13? You guys excited about this? Man, I'll tell you what, really excited. 13 years in a row, we do this because there are so many movies that are relevant in our culture that have these themes that have spiritual meanings behind them that we can use to understand more about the character of God and help our friends do the same. And so I'm going to show you a scene in a moment. Earlier this week, our daughters, my third child is a rising freshman at the university level, and she's getting ready to go to university this fall. And she said recently, I need to grow my movie repertoire. And we watch a lot of movies, but she felt like she needed to see more movies that she hasn't seen. So we've been kind of watching these big iconic movies that she hasn't seen yet. And so most of them are rom-coms or chick flicks, I will say. But nonetheless, it's been fun. Now my youngest daughter used this as an opportunity to watch one of her favorite movies, and she started it on a night I wasn't home. She didn't finish it. So the next night I was home and she said, "Hey Dad, after we're done watching Maggie's movie, do you want to watch the rest of Gran Turismo with me?" And I'm like, absolutely. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, let me just kind of set it up for you. Here's kind of the plot summary. It's based on an unbelievable and inspiring true story about a team of underdogs. And this team is a struggling working class gamer. It's a failed former race car driver, and it's an idealistic motorsport executive. And basically, they are risking everything in order to take on the most elite sport in the world. And so this is where Jan, the aspiring driver, he's out on one of his races, and he needs to do really, really well in this race. I mean, he's struggled a bit. He's on the edge of kind of losing his place in the series, and he's having one of his best races until his car literally lifts up at the Fluge Platte corner, and it starts to go airborne and tumbles 3 times before it goes over the barrier, and it actually kills the spectator. And this is based on a true to life story. And Jan is devastated, and rightfully so. I think we all would be. And we see him in the day or two after this where he's reluctant to even consider ever getting in a sports car again. And he feels this ownership. He's like, man, I'm responsible for that spectator's death. Certainly didn't go the way he planned. But Jack, his coach, he experienced something similar when he was in an accident a number of years ago at the 24-hour of Le Mans. And he encourages Jan. He's saying, hey, you got a decision to make right here. And so I want to show you this scene right here because he actually takes him back to the scene of the accident just a day or two later. And I just think as we watch this, and I'm going to give you a heads up, this is kind of a lengthy clip, so just kind of settle in on this. But I think God may want to say something. I don't even know what that is, but perhaps on something that has to do with your story. Take a look at this. I love that moment where he's like, hey, if you want to walk away, I wouldn't blame you. Most people wouldn't when you've been through something like that. He said, but I have a feeling you're not like most people. I want to ask you, where do you need to finish your lap? Where's that place in your life where you're just kind of stuck in your story? Where's that place that maybe things haven't gone the way you've hoped? Maybe the dreams, the plans, the initiatives, whatever you've been working on, the relationship, you just feel like you're stuck in the middle of your story. Where do you need to take the keys and say, okay, I need to finish the lap? He didn't say race. I mean, that's so cool in that little moment. He didn't say, hey, go finish the race. He said, no, you just got to finish the lap. Finish the lap. And I get it, it's hard. I mean, I've been in moments where I've been stuck. I mean, things, don't go the way you plan, or you build things and you have to rebuild. I mean, all kinds of things that don't go the way you expect. But you show up and you finish the lap. Maybe it's therapy, maybe it's counseling, maybe you started a therapy journey and it got hard and difficult and you're making progress, but see, the therapy journey gets harder before it gets better. Maybe that's one of the places you need to finish the lap. Maybe it's the pursuit of a dream, or maybe it's a relationship that perhaps you've given up on. Maybe it's a degree or a job or a position. You're all for it and then had second thoughts, begin to doubt yourself. Maybe something happened and it caused you to just go, man, I see it. I seem to be outsized by this. Maybe it's a place or a skill. Maybe you stepped into something and just failed. You felt like you failed miserably and there's so much trauma around that, or a specific place like it was for Jan. We all have one. We all have those places. Maybe it's faith itself. I mean, for some of us, we've had moments where we just felt like God didn't come through the way we thought, and And we kind of began to kind of distance ourselves. But let me just remind you, hey, you're still here. You're still here. Finishing the lap might just start with acknowledging, saying, okay, yeah, man, God is good. I'm going to thank God for his grace and the fact that I'm still here right now. And maybe in the midst of that, you begin to realize how good God really is. I can't begin to understand why things go one way and not other ways in your life and my life. But what I do see is I can look back and say, okay, but God, he's going to be there. And whatever comes my way, whatever the circumstances, I'm going to be okay. Man, I want that for you. I believe you have a bright future. I think God wants to write a better story, even through those worst case scenarios. In fact, these are some of our next steps this weekend. I want you to just think through, where do I need to finish the lap? Maybe it starts with gratitude, just thanking God for some way he's shown up in my life. In fact, I want to pray for us toward that end. God, thank you for believing in us. Thank you for being a God who doesn't bail on us when things don't go the way we plan. We know you know all plans, but we get so stuck and fixated on things that create pain and things that are awkward. And God, I just pray that even right now, some of us, we're right here and we're sitting in this room, or we're sitting in our living room, or we're sitting in a bar, or we're sitting in a coffee shop, and we're stuck in a story. And we're looking for a better story. God, I just pray that you bring the front of our mind right now, that you would just reveal to us, just show to us right now where we need to finish the lap. And perhaps that starts with gratitude. We're just thanking you for the fact that we're here. I mean, maybe we can't understand all the things we've gone through, circumstances, but we say, you know what, God, man, you've got me to here, and your grace, man, it never gives up on me. And I'm going to start with that. And see, if you're in the middle of a difficult circumstance right now, I just want to encourage you to share that with God. Because you're making a declaration. That's not just a gratitude. That's a declaration that, man, I can't fully see it right now, but God, I believe. And I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust you more than I'm going to trust myself in this moment. And so, God, thank you for being the narrative of new stories and better stories. And I pray that happen for us as we head into this week. Thank you. In your name, amen. Hey, I want you to go ahead and stand with us. We're gonna do one more song before we go. And it's a song that kind of is that declaration that Brad and the band are going to lead us in. So let's sing this together.
Way to praise you from the bottom of my broken heart, 'cause I think I'd rather strike a match than curse the dark. Yeah, I'll find a way to thank you, though the bitterness is real and hard, 'cause I'd rather take a chance on hope than fall apart. No, I don't think I'm ready to surrender to the dark, no. Even if my daylight never dawns, even if my breakthrough never comes, even if I fight to bring you praise, even if my dreams daylight never dawns. Even if I break through never comes. Even if I fight to bring you praise. Oh, oh, oh. Even if our dreams fall to the ground. Even if I'm lost, I know found. Even if my heart will somehow say hallelujah anyway. Hallelujah anyway.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. I believe God's got a future for you, and perhaps the next chapter started for you today. We can't wait to see and hear what God continues to write in the story of your life. Before we go, a quick shout out to those of you who are givers. Thank you for all the ways you invest in the lives of people through Crosspoint. None of this happens without your generosity through the Joy Box. Not only does your giving fund things like this online broadcast, but it also helps fuel things like the Back to School in Style clothing drive for students in our community. So if you're not a giver and you'd like to become one, you can donate at this QR code and be part of an amazing group of people that fuel all the goodness that comes out of this place. Last, if you'd like someone to pray with you today, we'd love to do that. All you have to do is text the keyword "need prayer" to 317-834-7373. A member of our prayer team will give you a call this week. Hey, thanks for joining us today. Next week begins at the movies. It's going to be a blast. We can't wait to see you next time.